H-A-T. It's in the name.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor with Ben and Travis podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the benefits of giving. I'm sure we'll hit from a spiritual standpoint, a social standpoint, all the standpoints. We'll be trying to touch all the bases. Grand slam of giving. We'll get to that conversation right after this important message. This episode of the Helping Healing Humor with Ben and Travis podcast is brought to you by the Heritage event, featuring 8 Oats, Saturday, August 23rd at the Renaissance Shoals Conference Center. This show kicks off at 7 p.m., doors open at 6:15, and table sponsors enjoy an exclusive dinner starting at 5 p.m. Reserve your table of 10, explore a variety of sponsorship opportunities, or grab your general admission tickets today. Contact Tammy Dial at tdial, D-I-A-L, at hcu.edu or visit www.hcu.edu for more info. I'm Travis Creasy, Fayetteville, Tennessee, Riverside Christian Academy, soon to be in Dothan, Alabama. That is all-pro counselor with three-chord counseling, also the pulpit minister at Highland Park Church of Christ, Ben Hayes.
What is up?
Man, all the things.
We're in the same room together again.
It's awesome.
I like it.
It's awesome. In Flowtown, I'm in Muscle Shoals right now, but generally speaking, Flowtown. Yes, there will be people writing about that comment, but I don't care. I'm in the Shoals area for Titus Camp. Teens in training for useful service. Been doing it for a long time, 19, 20 years. I can't even remember when I was in Albertville.
Lots of them.
Doing Man in the Morning, so look out for that. I may be posting that on my personal page or maybe Ben and Travis. So just check that out. Maybe it'll happen. So on today's episode, Ben, we want to talk about giving. And I think it's easy from a spiritual standpoint to connect the dots there, and I'm sure we will do that, as that is obviously most important thing going in our lives. But we'll also talk about some things that aren't necessarily spiritual aspects, although once again we'll probably connect them all back to that anyways. I think of biblical connections. I think of the woman who, and interesting enough, it's over and over again. You could just say the woman, and there's 4 stories there. But the woman giving the 2, is it 2 mites?
Yeah.
Is it even that much? In the giving that Jesus highlights, spotlights, and says she gave everything that she had. It wasn't necessarily the dollar amount.
Yeah.
It was what she had to give.
Yeah, I think they were kind of floored by that comment because, they were watching people give these huge amounts, and she gave what would be probably less than even a part of a penny today in our, in our society. And it wasn't much, whatever it was. I don't know exactly what that would have been worth in today's money, but it wasn't a whole lot. But it was that act of giving, what she had and really giving all she had. And, I struggle with that. I struggle with giving in those ways. But I think, as we think about our lives and what that does, we don't often think about the benefits of giving. We like receiving, when we get, and I guess we could talk, this is kind of like Christmas in July. Right, because people start talking about Christmas in July. We're about halfway point to Christmas. We talk about things like this at Christmas time.
I've already seen Halloween stuff in the Walmart.
Crazy, and I think this kind of week is National Give Something Away Day. I think on today actually when this is coming out, and so we're kind of halfway to Christmas. So just what are the benefits not of receiving, but of giving? And Jesus actually said, we don't know in the Gospels or in his stuff when he said it,
it's one of those things
we're told in Acts that the Lord has said it's better to give than to receive. I think that's in Acts where it actually points it out. Maybe it's in
Paul says it at some point.
Paul says
one way or another.
Yeah. And so, it's more blessed to give than receive. So what are the blessings in that?
You got to say it the preacher way, blessed.
Blessed.
Right? That's blessed. More impactful.
Blessed.
I think what I mentioned, it very rarely has to do with an exact amount. We know that the Lord loves a begrudging giver. No, a cheerful giver, someone who gives out of the joy. And so I think sometimes that we can talk ourselves out of giving because, what I'm going to give isn't
Not
going
much.
to impact that much. But I think both of us have stories where that's just not true.
No.
Where somebody gave what they could give, and it actually made a huge difference in someone's life.
Yeah.
And not to be like, oh, super corny and all this stuff, but some of us may all we can give is a smile or a hug. And I say just like it's once again, I'm devaluing it, but man, those things can go a long way. We often say the best present is presence
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
someone's life. So
You want to know how important giving is? Start something like I did at church, where you give the kids a sucker after every service. And let me tell you, they come find you. They seek me out after the service to find that sucker, and it's not worth that much.
yeah,
But it benefits me giving it. I love to be able to give it to them and see the smile on their face. And so I think that's one of the things that we get from the benefits of giving is, I mean, some scientific studies behind it. You can look some of those up, but it boosts your mood. It boosts your happiness just to give. I mean, as a dad, I didn't really understand that as much growing up because I like to get the presents on Christmas. But as a parent, you love to see. I don't always like to see my bank account get drained during holiday seasons or things like that. But I love to see the smiles on my kids' face when they open up those gifts. I love to see, how excited they get about the things that they're getting, and that gives me, happiness. It's kind of that almost like a high that you get from
yeah,
watching them do that. And there's actually, in our system, a release of dopamine, a release of oxytocin, those things that some of those things within our body that make us feel good. When we get it, like dopamine's when you ride a roller coaster, you get that dopamine rush, and some people get that rush when they give, and that's a feel good moment because you got to do something good for somebody.
even Jesus mentions that. You give your kids. Do you give them?
The kind of gifts to give them.
To give them, and he says, if you, being evil, those are the words, know how to give good gifts,
Yep.
then how much more can God give? We're not going to outgive God, and I think that's important to remember when we start measuring how much we actually have to give. And sometimes, and once again, Ben and I, we've been in ministry long enough that some of the smallest gifts that somebody else may not think is all that big a deal. I mean, you've got an entire wall over here of books, and even behind us, things that people were like, "Oh, I think Ben might like that," and you've had them 20 plus years because that's how long you've been in ministry, not necessarily me.
Pretty
that
close to
long,
that,
but
too.
those things. It's an exciting thing to be able to give and to
And
know the scientific aspect of that.
Yeah, and so while it boosts your mood, those sorts of things, it also increases those connections, like you're saying. I mean, so many of the things on this shelf back here, I mean, were given to me when I was at Petersville, or when I was at Eva, or when I was at Pine Hill, and there's stuff that I can look and I can see people and be reminded of it. And it wasn't like a monetary gift. It wasn't some big thing that you go, oh, look at what happened in my bank account. I probably couldn't sell most of these things and make anything off of them, but they meant something to me.
Yeah.
And so it was that amount. And some of the pictures and the things that are here represent the time that people put into me. And so it might not be a gift, but the time that they gave, or it might have been, I look at something and go, I remember that time I was I was needing something financially, or I was needing help in some other way. And so giving not only boosts our mood, but it also enhances those connections that we have with people. And you and I, not to make a shameless plug here, but I'm gonna make one, because it's not for us. You're not giving to us, but we raise money every year for St. Jude, and while we give to St. Jude, and while we do that, a lot of the people who give to it, it becomes a big social event. Here in the Shoals, we have the Ride for St. Jude, Saddle Up for St. Jude, I think is what they call it. They raise all kinds of money for St. Jude, and then we do the dodgeball tournament in a couple of weeks, and we would love for you guys to be a part of that and give to it. But then we also, raise money for the run, and that's what the dodgeball tournament tries to help. And so, that becomes in some ways a social connection, but you get a social connection out of giving to people around you.
Yeah, and we're gonna run. We have Team Ben and Travis There's some camaraderie there. There are people that I've been connected to that
Yeah.
maybe otherwise I hadn't. Josh Thorne, one of my good buddies, and has encouraged me in my life and everything that I'm going on, just for a good laugh every once in a while. That's a connection through Team Ben and Travis for St. Jude. If you can't be there in person, you can live stream it. You can share the live stream so that other people. It's small things like that. Obviously, a powerful thing. You can give people your prayers. When we say, "Hey, I'm going to pray for you," that is an act of giving. I'm going to give some of my time between me and the Almighty. I'm going to mention you to the throne room of God. And so that's a way. All of us, anybody listening here, can pray, can bring in thoughts and prayers. Everybody can do that for somebody who may be in a bad spot or may be feeling a need to be thought of. How many times have we set somebody fired off a text message and it just happened to be at the right time when we needed that in our lives? So yeah, building that community, building that camaraderie. It's funny to see the guys come up and goof off playing dodgeball, but when that whistle blows or we yell dodgeball, it's on. And it's a competition, and they're working all towards the same goal. We want to end childhood cancer, and we believe that you can have a good time doing it.
Yeah, and along with that comes the gratitude of what we have received. And so when you kind of combine both of those things, there's a connection to giving and fostering that gratitude. And some of that is the way that we're thankful for what we've received. We watch people be thankful for what they received, and there's actually some connection to a reduction in stress in that. And we've talked about before with it's really hard to be stressed out and worried when you're being grateful for the things that you have. And so those two things kind of seem to connect to each other. Scientifically speaking, they say that those who are giving or big givers, generous givers, people who love to do that, their cortisol levels are lower too. And so you've got that, which is kind of your stress hormone. And so the stress seems to be lessened by the giving and the connection to the gratitude.
And the biblical side of that, how many times does God talk about remember? Remember, I'm the God that brought you out of Egypt. Remember, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We partake in the Lord's Supper every week, and on the table it says, "Do this in remembrance of me." That remembering what good things have been done for you in turns makes you grateful and gives you a greater desire to do good. I mean, connect the dots. Your son Cypress had a growth on his face. He went to St. Jude. You saw what they did, and that fires you up. You remember what they did for your son, and you want that for other people. And so here I am out here pitching dodgeball and staying alive disco dodgeball tournament, all because of something that most people would look at your son and go, "That's a negative, horrible thing." And it was.
Right.
But don't you know the devil hates it when we take those things
and
we go, we're going to make this a good thing. And our response is to help those who in need rather than stay. Now, there's a time where it's serious and you got to pay attention and you can mourn and you can grieve. But man, when that turns and you go, wait, we're going to take this and do something fun and we're going to help other people, he's got to hate that.
Well, and when you're helping people, what happens in that? When you're helping other people, you're shifting the focus away from your own worries or anxieties or the things you're concerned about. I mean, this week or last couple of weeks, we've all been kind of touched by the stuff that's been happening out in Texas, not just with the camp, but a lot of people, in the community lost. We're getting into over 100 people who were lost. Their lives were lost. There's still people missing, and from whole communities. And one way that people cope even in those moments is to go out and give, to go do things, to take things. And you'll see people just giving stuff. You'll see people giving their time. You see people giving their prayers. You see people, sending out messages. And a lot of times, part of the reason, not the reason that we do it, but it does help us calm our own anxieties about those things.
Yes.
And we've mentioned before some folks that I know of read the book Overcoming the Blues by Ryan Fraser, and he talks about how in that book his wife would send cards to the people when she was dealing with a lot of depression and likely some anxiety with that. The way she would kind of work herself through that would be to write letters to or cards to people in their directory, and so she's trying to help others. In doing that, it was helping her overcome some of the things she was struggling with. So some of those cortisol levels, maybe for her, but specifically for us, as we're helping others and we're shifting the focus away from our worries and our concerns and starting to help other people as they go through it.
And I hope this isn't too soon, but I know that because I believe in a good God, there's going to be good that comes out of this, the Texas thing.
Sure.
I mean, if there hasn't already been, and I think
Yeah.
that the gut reaction sometimes is to find blame. And certainly, if there's issues that need to be corrected, they should be corrected. But ultimately, I think there's that response. We can blame somebody. We can find a reason to blame whoever we want. But ultimately, once again, it's the good that's going to come out of it. And I can say that confidently because I've seen it throughout my life. Things
Yeah.
not go well or tragedies happen and people grow closer to the Lord. There's some good that comes out of it. And I think that's just an amazing statement on the human condition, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be issue. It's life. There's going to be struggle. There's going to be pain and tragedy. But to see in every instance that I've seen in my life, something good come out of it shows you, the irresistibleness of the human experience.
Yeah.
And I just think that oftentimes you can be encouraged in that, even in the worst of moments.
Well, it kind of ties into the last thing a little bit, and that is that giving can also help us get a sense of purpose. We talk about a lot in our world the need, self-esteem, and that sort of thing, like how we view ourselves, and of course we don't want. And I know we've had this conversation several times that we don't want anything to be driven by pride. But at the same time, we have to we do need to look at ourselves. I mean, even the greatest commands say, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind,
Yes.
strength, and what? Love your neighbor as yourself. So there is a sense in which we have to love ourselves. No one ever hated himself, but nourishes himself.
Yes.
And, like when he says you nourish and cherish your wife, like you nourish and cherish yourself. We take care of ourselves. And so there's a sense of that. And so as we go through these times of giving, it gives us a sense of purpose. And you and I know that. We've talked about that with St. Jude. I'm a counselor because of experience that I had. This podcast exists because of something we went through, that you went through. And so I would actually challenge you on a lot of situations. Probably most things that make a difference in this world are there because someone went through a struggle.
Oh, yeah.
Or because someone, they decided to give back because of something that someone else did for them. And I read those stories all the time. And so our giving can a lot of times create a sense of purpose. We recognize here's where we find our purpose. And I've got clients that find ways to turn their pain of loss, maybe of a child or other things, where they've gone through these situations and they've found a way to turn that and shift it to give them some purpose to help other people.
Well, I think that's the struggle in our world today, this idea of hope. How powerful is hope? And of course, we would turn to the scriptures that tell us even that suffering has a purpose, that it produces hope. Ultimately, in the end, when it matures, it becomes hope. Jesus Christ, the ultimate example of suffering for someone else to give us hope. And so as Christians, that filters into every bit of our reasoning. The reason you're a counselor, the reason this podcast exists, the reasons why we're going to get a bunch of goofballs together and throw dodgeballs at each other, the reason we're going to go run in December is we feel a calling to give hope to the hopeless, just as Jesus did for us. And so, that's a very practical thing this week as we go out. What can I give?
Yeah.
Not, I can't give enough, or my giving isn't going to be an impact. It might simply be giving a smile to the lady or the man at the checkout counter, hugging a person. It's funny, there are people, and I have people that are close in my life that go, I don't want a hug just from anybody. In fact, that's a very small group. And you may be in that group for someone. You might be the only one that could give them some kind of physical touch, a handshake, a high five, whatever that may be. And you may be the only person that person would allow into that bubble. And you need to be that person, or maybe it's just a smile. I think it's something we can all give.
Well, looking for opportunities. And I think that's the biggest thing is we just so many times we walk past opportunities. And there's times I think about it better than others, whether it's sitting in a restaurant and asking someone, can we pray for you? Or, seeing somebody that just maybe needed a couple of dollars of change to get something, or you're in behind them in line and somebody's fumbling through their purse and they can't find enough to get whatever they have. And instead of getting frustrated with it, you just go, hey, look, let me just get that for you. Here's, it might be $5, it might be $10, it might be a couple of dollars. But whatever it is, finding those little things that we can give and we can connect with people, and you never know what difference that's going to make with them. And we've read those stories and we've heard those things. And so the challenge today on Give Something Away is give yourself away a little bit to people. Give things that you can do, whether it's an encouraging word or it's some money or it's whatever. Find something to give to today and see what happens. Maybe you'll notice some of the things we talked about making a difference in your life.
Yeah. And there's a great gift that the great warrior poet Toby Mac says that we all need, and that's forgiveness. Yeah. Maybe there's somebody out there. There's times, even this week, I've been driving around and I'm like, feel this feeling in the pit of my stomach, and it's like I'm holding a grudge somewhere. I don't know what it is, and I'm like, Lord, reveal to me, why am I in such a better mood? And sometimes it's I'm holding a grudge about something that happened forever ago, and it's just simple like, man, I thought I dealt with that. I didn't. Help me to forgive that person. And sometimes it's in the moment, like, okay, I've given them that gift, but I've also given myself a gift. And so that would be my parting words. Give somebody some forgiveness today, just as Jesus has forgiven you.
Well, what is it? Larry Davenport used to lead a song at chapel sometimes, and it says, love is something, if you give it away, you give it away, you give it away. Love is something, if you give it away, you end up having more. And he would jump right into blue skies and rainbows. And so, if we give it away, it's not gonna be less. We're not gonna find that we have less to give. The more we give, we're gonna find that we have more to give. And so I hope that we can keep doing that. Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.